minutes, but we can have another conversation. So Pete's asking me to talk about the political, maybe disagreements or conflicts in Wiki. I'd like to emphasize that what I think is the biggest opportunity here is that Wikipedia reaches 1 billion people a year, and we have the potential, given just a couple of afternoons, to reach tens of millions of people with very little effort, sharing climate change information in Wikipedia. Wikipedia does not have expert partnerships, despite having sought them for many, many years. It does not have institutional partnerships, and it's still a volunteer community with very few university collaborators or NGO collaborators, nonprofit organizations, government agencies helping. This is changing very slightly with experiments, but if this small group were to come up with some key messages, put those into Wikipedia articles and translate them into different languages, we can realistically reach entire countries to get right at the top of their Google search results by putting this information into Wikipedia. That's the biggest opportunity. So the political conflict that's coming up in the Wiki community, and I think this matters, so I'm going to mention it briefly. It's should the Wikimedia Foundation or Wikipedia community be carbon neutral? Should it strive to do carbon offsets or these kind of things? So that's a bit important for the Wiki community, but where this matters more is that if there's Wikipedia articles about carbon neutrality, and if somebody were to get expert engagement in these Wikipedia articles, whatever's in Wikipedia becomes the truth from God. It's where the conversation starts, and somebody can realistically control global conversation and the global direction of politics by editing Wikipedia articles on carbon neutrality and what it means for organizations to try to strive for this. Because that means that every journalist, every newspaper, every student, when they begin to think about this, they'll consult Wikipedia, and that's where their thoughts begin. Yeah. So when Wikipedia is arguing about these things, whatever the Wikimedia Foundation decides, I know it's just one nonprofit organization, but if the Wikimedia Foundation decides this, they kind of set the tone for every corporation and organization in the world.
So completely convinced by that. It's just a question of the how-to. So for me, the how-to is a couple of things. One, I'm pretty confident that we can bring a couple of major universities and research institutions to this conversation. The three that I'm thinking of, in Norway, we're working with climate change. Ingemette can talk better about this. An environmental organization called NILU, which is an independent sort of research institute. I've got two connections that I've had discussions with on this, with this regard, which is Oxford University, LSE, and also it looks quite promising in terms of Yale in terms of the Open Climate Lab. And these are all people who are particularly already very, very interested in collecting and collating climate change data, and very into open data and Wikipedia. So there's no sort of pushback, traditional academic pushback saying, oh, Wikipedia isn't proper academic research or what have you. And for instance, the Yale Open Climate Lab is already engaged for about 6-8 months now in doing a series of climate hacks. And then obviously you've got Fridays for Future, which we're connected to with regard to Pakistan, Zimbabwe, and Norway, or a fringe a collective working on that. And there are also specific software projects which are looking at science publishing, reputation, and tracking the supply chain. And what we're trying to do with there is bring in the citizen journalism and the Wikidata type bottom-up accruing of multi-witness data that is hard to gain trust around otherwise, and putting that into Wikidata and hacking on a series of Wikipedia pages, but also linking to other of the kind of traditional science platforms. So we're not just doing it as Wikipedia, Wikidata. And we're looking to basically start the project, and the end target is to present this project at COP26, which is in the UK in Glasgow, in November 2021. And we're looking to start it in the end of January at a climate festival that Inga Meta can talk about, and then do a first kind of public presentation on Earth Day, which is April the 22nd, 2021. So we're